Welcome students, welcome to the class of Botany today. Today we will be discussing about taxonomy. Taxonomy is one topic which is very important in order to understand the basic phenomena or the criteria that we will be dealing further. Like say for example your chapters living world or your biological classification, they all come from the root with taxonomy. So today we will be dealing with taxonomy. So let me tell you what this taxonomy means. Anything that deals with identification, nomenclature of any biological nomenclature or any scientific name, it deals with taxonomy. Okay, so taxonomy has been broadly identified on the basis of their nature, or I would say on the basis how they evolved. So the first that we are going to do is your early attempt. The early attempt was done by, of course, Aristotle. It was done by Aristotle. Aristotle observed some morphological characteristics. Morphological characters. So on the basis of those morphological characters, he came to a conclusion that there is something which is known as plants and animals. He was the person who identified plants on the basis of these morphological characters, and he namely put them under herbs, shrubs, undershrubs, and trees. Okay? Then he also classified on the basis of these characters even animals also. He said there are two set of different structured animals. One is anemia, other one is anemia. Anemia means without RBC. Anemia, animals with RBC. So the person who actually started taxonomy, or the father of taxonomy, is actually your Aristotle. Okay, so this is what we have done with Aristotle. Now let's come to a different attempt. This was your early attempt. Now we will come to the artificial system of classification. As you could see, the artificial system of classification, it was first initiated by Theophrastus. It was first initiated by Theophrastus. If I would say that the first artificial system of classification, it was first given by Theophrastus, again on the basis of morphological characteristics. Okay? So if somebody asks, or if the question comes that who was the first person to give artificial system of classification, it would be Theophrastus. Okay, on the basis of the characteristics observed by Aristotle and Theophrastus, it was Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus Linnaeus also gave artificial system of classification, but Carolus Linnaeus' artificial system of classification is also known as sexual system of classification. The sexual system of classification, Carolus Linnaeus used this in order to give you this term. The reason being because he studied plants on the basis of number of carpel and on the basis of number of stamens. Okay? So Carolus Linnaeus, although he gave artificial system of classification, but somehow he modified it into sexual system of classification. Why? Because he had the evidences for the morphological characteristics, but along with that he also worked on the number of carpels and number of stamens, and on the basis of this he came to a conclusion that artificial system of classification can be also called as sexual system of classification. Okay. Now we will be discussing further about the contribution given by Carolus Linnaeus. So now, as I was talking about, as I was talking about Carolus Linnaeus. So Carolus Linnaeus was the person who studied the number of carpels and number of stamens. Okay. Now moving ahead, I'm going to talk about the more contribution given by Carolus Linnaeus. Okay. So the Carolus Linnaeus, when he proposed this idea of sexual system of classification, it was during 1707 and to 1778. Okay. Now he also studied 24 classes of plants, and came to a conclusion that the 23 classes belonged to, again Carolus Linnaeus studied 24 classes, and then he came to a conclusion that 23 classes belonged to flowering plants, which we now know of as phanerogamia. And yes, of course, the 24th one would be non-flowering. That we now know it as of cryptogamia. This was the contribution that was given by Carolus Linnaeus. When he was doing these studies on 24 classes of plants, the complete detailed analysis of these 24 classes is published in the details of the 24 classes that he studied is published in Genera Planetrum. It is published in Genera Planetrum. So this is how we came to know about artificial system of classification, which is purely based on morphological characters along with some sexual characters as well. Okay, this was the contribution given by Theophrastus along with Carolus Linnaeus. Now moving ahead, we will be dealing with natural system of classification. As you can see, as we are going ahead, moving forward, more system of classification are getting more diversified. Okay, so let's look into this. Now we will be talking about natural system of classification. These four scientists gave their contribution in order to understand more precisely that how taxonomy deals with identification of an animal. So these four scientists were John Ray, De Candolle, Bentham and Hooker. Okay. Now let me tell you the contribution that they gave. Agreed, we say that it was natural system of classification. So the classification was based on natural affinities. So the classification was based on natural affinities. When we talk about natural affinities, that means we are talking about ultrastructure. We are dealing with ultrastructure, anatomy, embryology, phytochemistry. These four scientists, they gave natural system of classification which was based on natural affinities. Natural affinities, that means we can talk about the structure, the anatomy, embryological evidences along with phytochemistry. This was your natural system of classification. Now we will be dealing with phylogenetic classification. When we talk about phylogenetic classification, agreed that it was given by A.W. Eichler. It was given by A.W. Eichler. But these were the people who modified, or this was the person who modified Bentham and Hooker natural system of classification A.W. Eichler was the person who modified Bentham and Hooker natural system of classification and placed gymnosperms in the beginning. A.W. Eichler was the person who modified Bentham and Hooker theory of natural classification, and they placed gymnosperm in the beginning. So what we need to know that what was the taxonomical evidences, how the taxonomy evolved. So let me give you a quick recap. First, we dealt with the early attempt, which was given by Aristotle. Then it was artificial system of classification, initiated by Theophrastus and then continued by Carolus Linnaeus. Then it was your natural system of classification, which was given by John Ray, de Candolle, Bentham and Hooker. And Bentham and Hooker's theory was modified by A.W. Eichler, which finally gave phylogenetic. Remember, a phylogenetic tree would be like this, ancestral histories. Starting from the same origin, this is your phylogenetic. So the phylogenetic tree helps us to identify that the origin of that organism. So it was given by A.W. Eichler, but on the basis of Bentham and Hooker's theory. So this is what we have dealt with, the early attempts of taxonomy. Going ahead, moving further, we will be dealing with some more taxonomical aids. So now we will be dealing with branches of taxonomy. When we are talking about branches of taxonomy, as you can see, it has been subdivided into 4 portions. But yes, there is one scientist, his name is Turrell. He is the one who has given us the latest mode of understanding taxonomy, which we will be dealing later. But right now, let's start from the beginning, that how taxonomy is divided. Say for example, in order to study morphological characters, embryological evidences, genetic analysis, or your cytological analysis, every branch deals with them separately. So now this is what we will be dealing with. Okay, the first that we will be dealing with is your classical taxonomy. When we talk about your classical taxonomy, remember that in the beginning it was initiated with the help of morphological characteristics. Okay, so moving ahead, let me write it down here for you. Classical taxonomy, organisms are classified on the basis of natural affinities. On the basis of natural affinities. Okay? Classical taxonomy. Now let's move ahead and talk about numerical phonetics, which is also known as taximetrics, Adansonian taxonomy. You have to remember that when we say classical taxonomy, that means classical means we are talking about natural affinities. When we are talking about numerical, phonetics, taximetric or Adansonian taxonomy, that means we are dealing with the similarities and dissimilarities between the species. Number of similarities and dissimilarities. Okay, let me write it down. It is a numerical method of evaluation. It is the numerical method of evaluation of similarities and dissimilarities between the species. And on the basis of numerical method of number of similarities and dissimilarities, they prepare a family tree. And on the basis of this taxonomy, if any family tree is made, on the basis of this taxonomy, if any family tree is made, that family tree is known as dendrogram. On the basis of any numerical approach, if a family tree, just like a phylogenetic tree, is being made on the numerical approach, it will be known as dendrogram. Now we will be dealing with cytotaxonomy, which is also known as karyotaxonomy. As the name suggests, it depends on the cytological information of the cell. It deals with the cytological information of the cell. When I say cytological information, that means I am talking about chromosome number, chromosome behavior during cell division. This is what we are dealing with here. Cytotaxonomy or karyotaxonomy always deals with the chromosome behavior, chromosome number, and of course chromosome behavior during cell division. Okay, so this is what we have dealt with so far. Now last but not the least, we will be dealing with biochemical chemotaxonomy, which is very much in these days. As the name suggests, biochemical chemotaxonomy, biochemical deals with the biochemical nature. Chemical, or you can say biochemical nature. Say for example, fragrance of a flower, and many other examples which deals with biochemical, the chemical analysis. Okay, you can also add chemical analysis, any other apart from fragrance. Fragrance is just one of the attributes. Okay, so this is what we have dealt so far. So these are the branches of taxonomy. Let me have a quick review about it. Branches deal with, if there is natural affinity, that would be classical one, on the basis of dendrogram, number of similarities, dissimilarities between the species, numerical one. And yes, if I'm dealing with cytological evidences like your chromosome, which is very crucial because it is the one which carries information from the one generation to the another generation, I will be talking about cytotaxonomy or karyotaxonomy. Then I have a biochemical chemotaxonomy. Dependency is on the basis of chemical behavior or the nature. Okay. Now I talked about one scientist, his name is Turrell. So Turrell is the one which has given a complete, you would say, a synopsis about the taxonomy branch. So now let's talk about the Taxonomy Branches given by Turrell. He has summed up, I'll tell you in what portion he has summed up. So now we will be talking about the branches of taxonomy on the evidences given by Turrell. So Turrell is the one who has given taxonomy a new name, and that is alpha taxonomy, beta taxonomy, last but not the least it would be alpha, beta, gamma. No, it is alpha, beta, gamma, delta. It has given alpha, beta, omega taxonomy. Alpha taxonomy, beta taxonomy, and omega taxonomy. As the name suggests, alpha, it has been summed up together with respect to all the morphological characteristics. Morphological characteristics. And beta taxonomy, it deals with everything that says cell, chromosome, your numerical, chemotaxonomy, cytotaxonomy, and omega is the one which majorly deals with biochemical taxonomy, which is highly used in your genetic analysis or for further studies. So Turrell, what this scientist has done, it has summed up all the branches of taxonomy under one roof and made it very precise and very crisp that he has given the name not more complicated. He has just given alpha, beta, and omega. Omega is the one which is majorly used in order to understand the biochemical nature and the behavior of a cell in order to carry out any genetic approach analysis or anything like that. Okay. So this was the class of your taxonomy today. Hopefully it has been useful for you, and in the next classes coming forward we will be dealing with major other topics like a binomial nomenclature, and major topics would be covered in the next session. Thank you so much.